2022. We're in chambers. We're going to have a few public hearings before the regular meeting starts, but we'll naturally start with the roll. Mrs. Milton.
Present.
Here. Here. Here.
Here.
Thank you, Mrs. Milton. Please rise for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible.
Okay, so as I mentioned, two public hearings, not generally they're separate because they're different appropriations. Start with the smaller appropriation, just of it. That would be the consideration of a budget amendment and an additional appropriation of $125,000 from the Water Pollution Control Department fund balance. Mrs. Milton, will you read the call?
The Town Council of the Town of Cheshire will hold a public hearing at 7 p.m. on Tuesday, August 9th, 2022, in the Town Hall Council Chambers, 84 South Main Street, Cheshire, Connecticut, to consider the additional appropriation of $125,000 from the Water Pollution Control Department fund balance to finance the adopted year 2022-2023 capital project for upgrading waste thickening control panels in lieu of bonding and an amendment to the fiscal year 2023 WPCD operating budget to support said appropriation. Dated at Cheshire, Connecticut, this 18th day of July, 2022. Tim Slocum, Town Council Chairman.
Thank you, Mrs. Milton. We've had the explanation, the reading of the legal notice. Now it's time for the presentation of the hearing subject, just partially taken up in the legal notice. Is welcome to.
It'll be very brief. As we discussed in the budget, this is an appropriation that the council considered as part of the fiscal 23 capital budget. For putting waste thickening control panels at the treatment plant. This item that the council decided during the capital budget was more to be spent out of the WBCD fund balance, rather than bonding and borrowing for the said upgrades. So this is a required hearing tonight because it is an amendment to the overall WPCD budget as an increase to their budget so that the appropriation can come from revenue to pay for the expense. So that's it.
There are questions from the public? Any questions from the public? No questions. Statements? For, seeing none, I will close this public hearing. And open hearing for the consideration of an additional appropriation of $170,000 from the Water Pollution Control Department fund balance. You understand the procedure. We'll go on to the legal notice. Milton.
The Council of the Cheshire will hold a public hearing at 7 p.m. on Tuesday, August 9th, 2022, in the Town Hall, 84 South Main Street, Cheshire, Connecticut, to consider the additional appropriation of $170,000 from the Pollution Control Department fund balance to finance the adopted 2020-2023 capital for WPCD plan WPCD operating budget to support said appropriation. Dated Cheshire, Connecticut, this 18th day of July 2022. Tim Slocum, Council.
Thank you, Mrs. Milton. Mr. Kimball, would you like?
All right, pretty much the same presentation. This is for smaller equipment replacements that are required for the WPCD and the adoption of the capital budget. We discussed funding these rather than borrowing, but funding from the existing fund balance of the WPCD operating budget. And this appropriation is their budget in order order to make that funding available.
Very good. Again, any comment from the public? Any sense of opposition or support? None? I will close this one with the gavel. Thank you. We now move on to our regular agenda, which begins with public communication. Public comments are welcome this evening. If anyone wants to talk about something particularly on the agenda, you're welcome to do so. I do see a few members of the public. All we ask public comments is to come to our mic over there, give us your name and address, and you're free to speak for, a constrained period of time.
Hi, Olga Fernandez. I live at 21 Sharon Drive. And I'm here tonight on myself and on behalf of my neighborhood, which is comprised of Sharon Drive, Farmington Drive, Ott Drive, Dryden, Rosemary, all of these streets, Broadview, and our grave concern about the school bus access road that is being proposed, bringing school buses, hopefully only school buses, if this even happens, to the Norton School. Basically, we're all saying this just can't happen. The bringing lines of buses twice a day, and that would probably spill over into special events or whatever would happen. We also went from how would we police that? How would we control that? That would open up a can of worms. The congestion on Sharon Drive in particular, but most of the neighborhood, with speed limits that would now have to be posted, no parking signs that would have to be posted. The noise factor would go up, probably air pollution would go up, just generating an amazing amount of congestion, destroying so much of this beautiful century-old sacred ground that is a playground for children, that is a haven and a habitat for wildlife, creating an unsafe environment for a lot of the children that like to ride their bikes and play freely on the streets, a lot of the people who walk their dogs and their children on the streets and are carefree and free to move about without having to worry about all of this congestion, basically ravaging forever the special character of our desirable and beautiful and quiet neighborhood, as well as collapsing property values. I'm just asking that we, as a group, open our minds and potentially come at it one more time, or as many times as need be, to try to find a more beneficial solution to this access road. Personally, as a taxpayer, I would rather see whatever monies are going into that road to be put towards education. I know that the road would be very expensive. There's a lot of tree removal. There's a lot of construction that would need to happen. That has to come at a high cost, especially now. And so again, I'm advocating for creative thinking. I'm happy to help with that. And I'm advocating for the peace and quiet of a very desirable community.
Well, thank you very much, Ms. Fernandez. What I can say is that plans have been submitted to the state, basically, as they needed to be for funding and all the appropriations necessary to do these enormous capital projects,
Exactly.
which very likely will be voted on by the town council at our August 23rd meeting as a capital item to go to referendum in November, as you know. The council has obviously been aware of the planning process that does incorporate this road.
Right.
There's reasons that it's designed that way. The town does in fact have a right of way. And that property itself is rather extensive compared to what's shown on Route 42, North Brookvale Road now, where they built everything pretty much close to the front of the property. So clearly the new school does envision a placement. Your concerns obviously are being registered tonight. I'm sure there's more than just you and your neighbors that showed up. I think it's something we sort of discussed as well. But again, I believe there was support that it was the most the best way to circulate traffic. And my understanding was that it would be limited to bus traffic.
Well, we'll see about that.
Well, the
And-
parking lot designs and all of those things become a piece of all of that. So you're absolutely correct.
Yeah.
It would have to be something that is monitored well. And I'm certain that to the extent possible, your comments will be taken into consideration as once, in fact, the design phase, if this does pass at referendum, the design phase goes to a building committee of town people that need yet to be appointed. And they hire the architect. They help develop final planning for it. We've seen really rough schematic designing based on test fits of the property, which is basically, where can we put the building that has to be this size? and how can we
I've
do
seen
it?
the test.
Right.
Yep.
So you're familiar, but I'm taking advantage of the time to sort of, again, explain it to the public. We had a tremendous dearth of interest in the last year and a half on any of this. And believe me, we seek input, rarely get it. It's one of the frustrations of being a member of the town council. Nonetheless, we appreciate your comments. And we will certainly make sure they're a part of the record and you're a piece of the process.
I would really appreciate that, as with my
Absolutely.
neighbors.
Absolutely.
Again, I'm just appealing for creative thinking in this town.
Exactly. I understand that. And I think we'll endeavor to do the best possible thing we can do with that. It may end up being the way it's envisioned now. But
Well, there's
We
always,
shall see.
there's always a conversation for possibility,
Absolutely.
and that's what I've.
And that's why designers, unlike ourselves, and, they really have to sort this out, traffic studies, all kinds of things like that.
Exactly.
Right. There's certainly a process that
Good.
has yet to unfold.
And I look forward to being part of that.
Terrific.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any one of your neighbors like to speak as well? Well, we'll know for the record that 6 of you showed up tonight. Feel free.
Maybe 8 neighbors.
8, well,
I don't know, we are close, I don't think.
I thought most of you were here for that appropriation hearing.
Just briefly, I'm Suzanne Lawson, 258 Sharon Drive. And to Olga's point, I think, Tim, you just mentioned that regarding if anyone did a traffic study or will be doing a traffic study.
Oh,
That-
absolutely. That's all
Okay.
a piece of this. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, and just, you see the support. We're,
No, I understand.
Yeah.
Because naturally, we're putting ourselves out as a council, certainly Board of Ed, as a Board of Education, in support of an important town project.
Right.
That's going to cost everybody a ton of money. So, we want to garner as much support as we can. It's just unfortunate, prior to the referendum, we can't say with any degree of certainty that it's much different than how it's been presented on the test fit. So your impact, can't entirely be felt at this moment.
okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you so much. We really do appreciate your participation. There you go. It's your turn. The constable goes last.
Hello, my name's Alan Edelman, 251 Sharon Drive. Edelman, Edelman. And I wanted to speak to the fact that Sharon Drive is a residential road habitated by retirees and people who wanted to get away from an urban environment and, again, enjoy walking, stepping on the sidewalk on their lawns and not worrying about the rush of traffic. And the buses will change this into a thoroughfare, not a residential road. So it's going to be again, a thoroughfare, whether we like it or not. And I don't see how you're going to control the rate of bus flow and the accompanying cars that will now gravitate to this road.
Well, certainly on a day-to-day basis, the traffic would be the same as far as the buses go. So you're certainly correct. How the public uses it, I'm not certain that's been really fully vetted or whatever. I think it was designed as a bus circulation. But again, that unfolds in the real design phase.
Well, you're altering the roadway and its purpose.
In a town
Basically.
right away.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a right of way in the town right away, in the town property. So it's always been there, like a paper road, I guess is a way to describe it.
Mhm.
So, you know, it was there because it was, I presume, contemplated as a need potentially for whatever reason.
Mhm.
Now we've chosen to use the site we own because it's a large enough parcel to actually construct a new school while the other one is in place.
Mhm.
And then that one gets demoed when the new one gets opened. So that's
So
essentially.
will this traffic pattern ever be reverted back to something that avoids Sharon Drive or?
Well, it's not a case of reversion or construction access. It's as envisioned, it's part of the plan. So that's what would have to be addressed, obviously, in the planning phase to actually satisfy your concerns, questions, or leave them in place and make some people unhappy, I suppose. I mean, I'm just trying to be realistic. Because we have a level of planning, but it's not a final design.
Mhm. Okay, because it seems like the road its intent was to provide access to all the homes and neighborhood primarily, not necessarily a thoroughfare. So hopefully we'll take that into consideration.
Right.
Okay.
Understood.
Thank you. Thank you
Thank-
for your
thank you.
time. Mhm.
Would you like to come up, Mr. Constable?
Speaking as a guy that lives across the street from this road rather than a constable, my name's Randall Rains, 420 Sharon Drive. And yeah, obviously I have a vested interest in this because my house is right across the street.
Right.
I would point out to the council that I don't know of a single school anywhere that I've ever had any experience in where the school access road dumped into a residential neighborhood. I just don't know of one. But that issue aside, I mean, you're going to do what you got to do. My concern is, and I apologize because I'm not fully up to speed on this, but my understanding is you're going to tear down 4 schools and build 4 new ones. No?
No, this proposal calls for the construction of 2 school buildings, one in the north end, one in the south end. The one in the north end is proposed to consolidate special ed into that school so that Darcy no longer has to be a school.
Right. Well, understood. Darcy's kind of a,
It's a 1947 school.
well, I mean, you can upgrade that, but it's such a small area. Anything more than kindergarten or special ed is probably ill-served.
And
there.
all of the kindergartens will be returned to their home schools.
Mm.
So there's a lot of this process which takes place in 2 buildings and accomplishes a few different things.
So
Chapman would be a school that would be shuttered. So it would no longer be a school building in town.
how
So
about Doolittle?
Doolittle stays the school that it is and could be subject to renovations in another plan down the road. But there's nothing envisioned for that in this referendum piece of
Okay,
business.
so basically Chapman goes, Darcy goes.
We still have 4 elementary
Right.
schools, but it
Well,
includes
my,
Highland and
my food for thought point would be that instead of having 4 schools, you consolidate them into 2 schools. And I'm not thinking so much about, and one of them would probably end up being at Norton, but it's the overhead that
well,
hurts municipalities.
speaking to your point, Mr. Rains, a lot of the calculation of school building size comes off a template from the state of Connecticut. It's based on all kinds of things.
Sure,
They
no,
don't want, for example, a school building built the size of Highland School today. They don't want that
Really?
large a population in the schools. There's classroom space requirements. There's other types of space requirements. It's really quite involved, and it's an eye opener for all of us during this near 3-year process.
I'm sure it is. I didn't.
Yeah,
I didn't
but it
come up
is
here to
really
be-
it's interesting to say the least.
I didn't come up here to be argumentative.
No,
just
I
from
understand.
from a a standpoint myself as a businessman,
Right.
Having 3 or 4 principals is not as efficient as having 2. Having 4 kitchens and gyms and all that kind of stuff is not as efficient as having 2. And I just kind of see the long-term spending, if nothing else, on pensions is getting out of hand. Now, I'm relatively certain that this new school is going to have a higher percentage of overhead space than Norton does. Just the nature of bureaucracies to build their bureaucracy. And, my basic fear is the same thing will happen there that happened to the town hall. And happened to the youth center. The youth center used to have 2 or 3 rooms for kids to play in, and it turned into the bureaucracy's rooms. And the town hall, I mean, it blew up, and the bureaucracy blew up. And the high school, they used to have a small principal. When I was there in 1968, the principal's office was like an 8x10 or something. And I don't know what it is now, but I guarantee it's twice that size.
Well, there's obviously, we do have to take into consideration all the things that happen in schools, good or bad,
Yeah.
as well as the education process. And we are bound to certain critical standards that have been designed and, forced upon us, whether you state it or
You
not.
guys are doing the hard work. I mean, I haven't been involved in politics in 40 plus years, and I know you guys are doing the hard work. I'm just kind of asking you to take a step back and say, how can we do this more efficiently?
Well, we've
'cause I'm-
endeavored in the plan to come up with the most efficient. And the beauty of our system is that we do put it in the hands of the voter. The 9 of us have made a unanimous vote to support this as a council, but after that, we're
No,
9 voters, just like you, joining the ranks of voters,
really-
and we'll see how it flies. And we could learn a lot, I suppose. We'll just have to see how it turns out.
Well, the voters are really the ones that count.
They are
And
indeed.
I can only recall 2 referendums in all the years I've lived here that failed. One was the town hall and the other was the dog pound.
Well, you probably missed that pool a couple of
Oh,
times.
yes, the pool
Yeah.
went down a couple of
Yeah.
times. I forgot.
Yep. And we
All right,
even had
well,
a piece of the linear trail didn't make it one time.
Really?
Oh, yeah. What a shock, huh?
That surprises me.
It's okay.
But anyway, I appreciate your time. I didn't mean
I
to sit here and
appreciate
babble.
all of your
And,
announcements, questions, and input
yeah.
from all of you. We value that. We think it's very important.
Well, thank you and good luck.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Ben Lampy. I live on 349 Sharon Drive. Lampy, Lampi. Question I had related to the access road. If the proposal does move forward, what is the time frame for the construction phase of the new building? And will that access road be used for construction materials and accessing the site during the construction phase?
That's a very good question. And I have only a guess. I think they may want to do that since school is in session when there is construction underway. So that certainly may be a possibility. I can't speak to that completely, but only envisioning a project of that scope. It certainly seems like, and where the town would come in on that is regulating that activity. Planning and zoning does that with applications that come before it for construction of this, that, and the other thing.
Could you explain a little what regulations those would be? Is that time they'd be allowed to work, visibility from the street,
Well, they would
impact?
certainly have to make it safe. But they might be restricted to, when everybody's awake, basically, as opposed to a 4:00 a.m. start to be earth moving or doing whatever. Certainly there'll be activity that a lot of people could hear. It's going to be a construction site if this should pass. But again, I'm sort of guessing about the construction access, but I certainly think in consideration of student population, as well as parked vehicles that have to be there during normal operating hours of Norton School during a building phase, that there is, I think we could expect that could also be a construction access road.
That would be my main concern, is impacting during the construction phase. Obviously, it's residential. That's where we park. That's where we walk, drive. And I'd be concerned in the impact of that. Plus, nobody wants to hear construction in the morning, in the evening, on our weekends when we're home away from work. That's our time to relax. And I guess my other question would be, when will we receive more details about the next phases and whether or not it goes through?
If this succeeds at referendum, a building committee will be appointed. It'll be comprised of volunteers from the town of Cheshire. They will be charged with hiring an architect, a consulting construction manager, if you will. And they will be, tasked with getting started on a project. I believe the design phase may take, could take 9 to 12 months, I suppose. And then construction begins, and I believe a school opening is projected to be 2026.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Well, I think it looks like we're ready to move along. You're welcome to stay for our exciting other agenda items. Okay, we're going to move along to the approval of minutes, corrections to minutes of July 12, 2022, Town Council regular meeting, and the July 26, 2022, Town Council and Personnel joint meeting. They were included in your packets. Presumably, you've all read them. I'll be seeking a motion to approve as amended. Thank you, Mr. Talbot. A second, please. Thank you, Mr. Veliver. All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, we go to consent calendar, and I'm just very sorry, but we don't have one. In all of my years on the council, I can't remember another time. I think it's just unprecedented. Okay, we'll get working on those contributions. Too much thank yous for Mr. Barry. Okay, anyway, we move along to old business, which is the school modernization update, followed by Bartlam South project update. I don't believe we have any further updates. So there's, unless, John, you have something in Bartlam Park, there's nothing really to update on the schools.
I'd just like to mention one thing. We did have one meeting, and the project is moving forward. I do believe it's received wetlands approval. It's going to be in front of planning and zoning soon. And there was some suggestions made as to the nature of the band shell that might be proposed there. And based on some additional input from the consultant and some others, they feel that what was presented to the council in terms of in preliminary illustration may be going in a different direction. I don't think that may be appropriate. So you may be seeing something in a different nature. Just giving you a little heads up that when you see that, there's a reason for it. It's going through a design process. Yeah.
That's great to know. So if something looks good, sometimes it's not always the best thing. The wind blows, everything happens.
Peter, I don't know if you want anything.
Okay, excellent. Thank you for that. Okay, we now move to new business, and we will start with the authorization to submit an application for AARP Age-Friendly Livable Community Program. Ms. Pavano.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Be it resolved that the Town Council approves Resolution 080922-1. Be it resolved that the Planning Committee supports the Town of Cheshire's participation in the AARP Age-Friendly Livable Community Program with no financial obligation to the town. And be it resolved that the town's participation will be subject to full compliance of all applicable laws and without restriction to participate in other similar programs. Be it further resolved that the Town Council approves the letter of commitment as presented to complete the program process.
Thank you, Ms. Pavano. We have a second for Mr. Talbot. Further discussion? Danny?
Yes, this has been, the application has been reviewed by planning, and we sent it to the town attorney for review. This is the program, the AARP program is going to be a great addition, and they actually have been using some of these programs. I just participated in the safe driving program and I will be getting a discount for 3 years on my auto insurance. So I do encourage the senior residents to take advantage of the many programs that the senior center offers, and I'm sure that we will be looking forward to a lot of new programs with the AARP program now. Thank you so much.
So you didn't have to, you passed your, you got.
Yes,
your
I
license.
passed.
Very good.
Yes,
That's just terrific.
yes. All
Excellent.
you had to do was sit and listen.
You had to earn that discount. Okay, terrific. Anyone else want to ask a question, expound upon that? Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, we now move along to B, which is the appointment of a Town of Cheshire's representative to the Greater Waterbury Transit District Board. Ms. Boano.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Be it resolved that the town council approves resolution 080922-2. Be it resolved that the town council pursuant to Connecticut General Statute Section 7-273C appoints Stephanie Thoreau as the Town of Cheshire's representative to the Greater Waterbury Transit District Board for the term current through July 1, 2023.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Nichols, for the second. Ms. Boano.
Yes, I believe that this is a very good appointment because of all the work that Stephanie does for the senior center, and I definitely support this.
Perfect. Anything else? Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Correct, Mr. Welch? I forgot to look your way, Don. Okay. We now move to C, which is approval of an additional appropriation of $170,000 from the Water Pollution Control Department, WPCD, fund balance to finance the adopted fiscal year 2022-2023 capital project for the WPCD treatment plant equipment replacement in lieu of bonding. Mr. Bowery.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Be it resolved that the Town Council approves Resolution 080922-3. Be it resolved that the Town Council amends the total appropriation for the fiscal year 23 Water Pollution Control Department operating budget with an increase of $170,000 to finance the adopted fiscal year 23 capital project for WPCD treatment plant equipment replacement. The revenue to support this increase will come from $170,000 appropriation from the Water Pollution Control Department fund balance, which the Town Council hereby approves.
Thank you for that. Thank you, Mr. Belliber, for the second. Any further discussion? I know this is
No,
the
this was-
subject of a public hearing.
Right. It'll still leave $1 million balance on a $4 million budget. That's a significant percentage, 25%. So we're not bleeding dry the fund balance from this department. I think these are necessary items with the revitalization of the operations over there. It's given us an opportunity recently to do some of the necessary projects, and there are still more coming down the road as well.
Right. No, it seems to me it is a good use of the funds. Any further discussion, comments? Okay, I'll call for vote. All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Okay. Turning the page, we go to approval of an additional appropriation of $125,000 from the WPCD fund balance to finance the adopted fiscal 2022-2023 capital project for upgrading waste thickening control panels in lieu of bonding.
Mr. Chairman, be it resolved that the Town Council approves Resolution 080922-4. Be it resolved that the Town Council amends the total appropriation for fiscal year 23 Water Pollution Control Department operating budget with an increase of $125,000 to finance the adopted fiscal year 23 capital budget for upgrading waste thickening control panels. The revenue to support this increase will come from a $125,000 appropriation from the WPCD fund balance, which the Town Council hereby approves.
Thank you, Mr. Bowery. Second. Thank you, Mr. Talbot. Discussion, again,
Same.
same discussion. We've said the same thing 3 times about each of these,
Yes.
which is great. So I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Welch. Okay, we now move along to amendment to hourly fee for use of Cheshire Police vehicles at extra duty jobs. Mr. Bowery.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Be it resolved that the Town Council approves Resolution 080922-5. Be it resolved that the Town Council pursuant to Town Ordinance Section 14-3H hereby amends the fee for the use of a Cheshire police vehicle at extra duty job sites from $25 per hour to $30 per hour. And be it further resolved that this resolution supersedes any and all previous resolutions establishing such fee.
Okay, that was Mr. Jinks with a second, thank you. So, Mr. Police Chief. Hello, Chief Drive.
Good evening. This, as you may recall, was something that came up briefly during the budget hearing. So I looked into it at the direction of the council. The fees are still kind of widely all over the place in other departments. You see anything from $10 an hour to $100 flat fee. Most of our average extra duty job lasts about 6 hours. So we're billing, $150 every time a contractor wants a police vehicle out there. We billed approximately 6,200 hours last year for a total of $155,000 in revenue. The addition of the $5 per fee will generate an additional $31,000 if we do roughly the same amount of hours. I estimate we'll do a little bit more. It just seems that the construction season has been particularly busy. Anybody who's driven on Route 10 in the last couple of days, you can't go 100 yards without seeing a cruiser at an extra duty site. So, $30, we don't want to get into the point where we're pricing somebody out of the market, right? Where people start saying, you know what, I don't want the car because they don't have to take it. And back in the old days, the officer would drive their personal car out there and then stand in the road, with a yellow shirt on or a traffic vest on. So I thought $5 was a fairly benign amount to go up initially, and we'll see how it goes. But that was my recommendation.
Thank you for that, Chief. I had a question, if nobody else does. And it has to do with the actual activity that's involved during that police duty. And I don't know if my site is failing or whatever, but is there the potential to be able to glove a director of traffic so I can see their white hand instead of their, I don't know. It's something that sometimes I don't get what's going on with this. I always get the stop sign when the tree guys are there. They got a slow and a stop. Sometimes with the officers, maybe it's the same way, but sometimes it's difficult.
It's come up, and we bought the gloves, the high-vis gloves, but I think
No one wants to wear them in the heat.
well, like on days like today, I mean,
And I get that.
we allow them to wear shorts and just the short sleeve high-vis t-shirt or polo shirt.
And that helps.
Having them throw gloves on a day like today, I think is probably a bridge too far for some of them,
Right.
and could be pretty uncomfortable. Look, you're not the first person to ever bring that up. As a matter of fact, a couple of weeks ago when I was leaving a daytime meeting here, somebody in the parking lot brought it to my attention. Again, we bought the gloves, but it's kind of like a shell that goes over your winter gloves. They are the same high vis as the shirts and everything like that.
Okay.
There are fingerless gloves that might be an option for the warmer weather. So it's certainly something I can look at.
Well,
getting for
I
everyone,
don't
but-
want to drive a hard bargain. It's
Yeah.
just, it's just something that sometimes visibility, sometimes it's just shady. You're
Yeah.
in a shaded area.
Right.
And you just don't see them as well. And there's sometimes great distance between some of these
Yeah, there can be.
crews. That's all. Appreciate that. So yes. Mr. Raines, if you have a question, you have to be mic'd as well. So you're welcome to come up, ask your question into the mic.
I was just wondering if the $30 an hour included the officer. No. Okay. You might use a flashing light on my bicycle. It works pretty well.
Terrific. Chief, we're going to vote on this, but I was wondering if I could indulge you, since you're here, to speak to some of the recent happenings and your best efforts to address some of them. We can do that after the vote, not to distract, but if that would be okay with the council. Okay, so all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Walsh. So Chief, you know the question. I'm not sure the public's fully aware, but we just live in the same kind of town. A lot of towns have problems, and we've had a spate of them recently. And
Yeah.
so if you want to speak to that, I'd appreciate it. I know this stuff makes it to the Facebook pages anyway, but I'd like to have your handprint on it.
Yeah, probably what I consider 3 or 4, pretty consequential acts in the past, say 10 days, all of which I've briefed the council on via email. So first was about 10 days ago. There's been a crew that's been the subject of intelligence bulletins that have gone out statewide, breaking into car dealerships with the intent of finding car keys and stealing vehicles off the lot. A lot of times what they'll do is they'll go to the night drop box. So you drop your car off for maintenance, you slide your key through some kind of slot of varying degrees of security. I would never do that at this point in time. Go there earlier in the day, make sure they have your keys inside, although sometimes that's not foolproof either. But down at Dowling Ford, they ended up stealing 3 vehicles. 2 of them we recovered within probably 12 to 18 hours. But as of yesterday morning, there's still a bright orange Ford Mustang that's engaged a number of departments around the lower Naugatuck Valley and Hamden in pursuit several times. And again, it's a property crime. It's not to make light of it. It's just a stolen car. It's not worth the pursuit. It's not legal to pursue at this point. So it has so far eluded all law enforcement efforts to take it into to recover the car and arrest the people driving it. The cars that were recovered, we processed them all for fingerprints and DNA mostly is what we're looking for there. That will be a months-long investigation while we wait for those results to come back from the state lab and hope that they are matched to an identifiable suspect who's in the database there. And then there'll be further work to try to get to the point where we can get a warrant for that person. Twice in the past, I think it was Friday night or Thursday night into Friday, and then Sunday into Monday, Richard Chevy was hit by a crew who are stealing catalytic converters. Again, another common thing that's happening all around the state. On Friday night, an off-duty corrections officer noticed the suspicious activity, pulled his car in just as we were responding to a call from the security company, and the people fled before we got there. On Sunday night into Monday morning, we were able to get a license plate off the car that was being used. Unfortunately, it came back to a stolen car from New Haven, so it doesn't exactly allow us to go and track back. And then you did. Oh, yeah. The council, I'm sorry, I'm confusing my emails there. So Sean sent out an email from Jeff Solon talking about the fact that the police department interrupted the attempted theft of catalytic converters at this bus depot very early this morning. And that was basically, we started yesterday, as my email said, putting out some extra officers. They were kind of hanging in front of the dealerships. The patrol officers were encouraged to go out and hit the regular spots. So one of the patrol officers pulled into the bus depot, saw kind of a flash of light in the back. And about 5 seconds later, the same stolen car from Richard Chevy the night before, still with the same license plate on it, took off from the wooded, kind of the fence line behind the bus depot, out onto Highland Avenue, northbound, high rate of speed, onto 691, and we just shut it down at that point because they don't stop until they crash, and it's just not worth it at that point for a property crime. So, in addition to that, last Thursday, there were 6 vehicles, 4 on Grandview Court and 2 parked in employee parking spaces at Bizzuto's that were broken into, several of them forcibly, which, as I put in my email, is something different. That we've been extremely frustrated, as have the residents, with the number of people who've been going into unlocked vehicles in the middle of the night. So under cover of darkness, looking for targets of opportunity. In this case, it happened between 2 p.m. and 3 p.m., so broad daylight on a Thursday afternoon. And apparently they're using pry bar, which, the second you kind of really get any tension on it, the window just shatters in certain vehicles. That's how they're entering the vehicles. And I guess depending on your workplace and whether or not you have a locker inside or whatever your personal preferences are, there were personal belongings, pocketbooks, things like that were left in the cars that were stolen. And one of the car owners had a handgun in the glove compartment, which was also locked. But again, you think about your glove box, it takes about a second and a half to pry that open if you have a pry bar. So they popped the window, they popped the door to get in the window. His car was locked, his glove box was locked. Nonetheless, his firearm has been stolen from vehicle there. So again, that happening in broad daylight, all of it, actually all the incidents captured on video, but we can see that it's an older model Acura sedan. It looks to be silver or gray in color, and it's got, I think the passenger side rear taillight is damaged in some way, but there's no license plate visible on the car. So again, nothing that we can see there that we can say, okay, let's go to that address and see what's going on there. So again, frustrating. I don't know that they're hitting us between 2 and 3 because they know that's our changeover time on purpose. I don't want to give them that much credit, but nonetheless, that's when it happened. And again, it's in a way it's an escalation in that they're breaking into cars. In some cases, breaking the window on the car, not stealing anything, which again, the old rule of thumb used to be if somebody's going to force entry into their car, it's because they're looking through the window and they can see something of value. They're not going to take the risk of smashing out the window just to rummage around hoping that they're going to find something. So in that way, that's a little bit of a new one on us too. That's it. We've put out extra patrols, particularly on the midnight shift, to try to counteract this the car thefts. I guess we could make the argument that it was somewhat successful last night. I think they got away with one catalytic converter. The other one was abandoned in the parking lot at the bus depot, although it had already been cut off. There was some evidence recovered there, some saw blades and stuff. So we're hopeful to get DNA off that and take it from there. But again, that investigative process could take weeks, if not months, when you're waiting for DNA samples to come back from the lab. And again, you have to hope that if there's an identifiable DNA sample, you have to hope that it's matches to somebody who's in the DNA database. That's our frustration. Sometimes we know that juveniles are involved in this, and you can get a DNA sample, but it doesn't come back to anybody because they're juveniles and not in the DNA database. So according to the detectives and the officer who's assigned to the auto theft task force, they believe there's a crew working out of Plainville and New Britain area that's doing the catalytic converters, and to their knowledge, they're adults. So if it turns out that is, in fact, the people who are involved, we're hopeful that at least we'll maybe be able to make a case for some of the catalytic converter thefts. They cut it is. Sean shared the picture. It's cut wide. Yeah. The fence is cut wide open. Yeah. That's how they came in. They backed the car between the fence line and the woods because they don't care about the car. It's stolen. And then cut the fence in the back. The officer happened to see a flash of light. I don't know if they were using a flashlight or just glinted off something. And that's what made him stop. And then they fled from there.
Okay. Well, thank you for the update on more bad news. Oh, question.
Just a quick, related to that because of visibility, how are we doing on staffing? Because there was turnover and we added a position, all that. How are we doing? Are you full?
We're full, but we're at 48 on the books.
Okay.
I have one officer who got military orders at the end of May that are said the end of next May to come back. So that's it. And I have one officer who on Monday had surgery and will be out at least 3 months. And we've had a little baby boom at the police department. So I've had a number of officers out on paternity leave, but that's much shorter term. But we have 48 officers employed right now. So yes, that's a big, the disadvantage we ran into in the last couple of years is you'd have somebody on military leave, somebody out on paternity, and somebody out injured, and you were 4 people short to begin with. So we're in a lot better shape than we have been. It's allowed us to, we've put another officer back in the traffic division, and we've been able to maintain having one of our patrol officers assigned to the Southington Auto Theft Task Force, which is where we're getting all our intelligence on these issues. So it's been your support in keeping us fully staffed has been much appreciated and has certainly paid dividends now.
Good, thank you. And no one in the academy.
Nope.
So we've got them all there.
They're all on there. The last 4 people we hired were already certified, so
Gotcha.
we didn't have to send them to the academy at all.
Mr. Jenks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was curious, so the size of our force and the size of any municipal force is based on the population, right? That's kind of how it's calculated, is that right?
Yeah, it's a rough rule of thumb. Yeah.
Right. Given kind of the nature of crime, the nature of these crimes now, is there discussion among chiefs? Is there some rethink as to whether or not more resources would change the kind of the repeat nature of this or the frequency of this? Is there anything else you think staffing wise that would improve?
We're not overwhelmed with calls for service.
Yeah.
These things, as I've explained before, they're so hit or miss. Like I would love to be able to say, hey, you know what? They've hit us every Tuesday and Friday for the past month. I'm gonna have the entire department working Tuesday and Friday. They're just, they might not hit us now for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So it's very difficult to plan for that. It's no secret, certainly to you folks here, that we're adding an awful lot of residential, whether it's apartments and residences, over the course of the next couple of years. There's hundreds of units of housing on the at various planning stages or construction stages. So if there's a corresponding rise in the calls for service, it's something I might have to come back to you for in a couple of years once that all settles out and say, you know what, we could use 2 more or 3 more, whatever. But there's nothing that look, could I put 3 officers on the auto theft task force if I had 1 more? Probably. But again, they're doing a lot of investigative follow-up work. But I don't know that might lead to more efficient investigations. But is it going to allow us to catch people in the act? Again, a lot of this we'll find when we catch people, they are repeat offenders who are not treated very harshly by the criminal justice system because it's just a property crime. Depending on what they've stolen, it can be a misdemeanor in many cases. We've talked to our state legislators a couple of years in a row about the juvenile justice changes that we felt were causing an uptick in the car thefts. The brazen driving behaviors, the fact that people just, even here in town, people routinely take off from the police on what we think are just routine traffic stops, much less these guys who are coming in, in driving stolen cars and committing other crimes.
Right.
Again, I'm not one of those folks who believes that the answer to that is to change the laws on pursuit. I think they are dangerous and cops get hurt, innocent people get hurt most of all. Suspects are taking their chances, in my opinion, when they choose to engage in that. But normally they don't just crash off the side of the road and hurt themselves. They crash into some innocent third party, or some family somewhere, and it's just a horrible consequence. So, we're doing our best, and I don't say the second half of that we're doing our best with what we have, because I think we have enough.
Okay.
I think there are enough people out there. It's just such a random, kind of hit or miss kind of incident. Again, we could go. It wouldn't surprise me if we went 3 weeks now without a single catalytic converter theft, and then all of a sudden, we'll get hit 2 out of 4 nights again. So.
Yeah, in watching the reports, the monthly reports from the police department, because I'm on the Public Safety Commission, so I see them twice a month. So it's not like I'm looking for them.
Right.
To study them. But it seems like this year we've been doing better as far as the motor vehicle thefts. That's been sort of
Yeah.
trend, at least versus last year.
Right.
So this recent activity is kind of a shock, or
Yeah.
sort of the level of it is kind of a shock, right?
Yeah.
It's something new.
And again, I think, anecdotally, I think the campaign of, hey, don't leave your car keys in your unlocked car has something that has kind of been a statewide issue. But I think the messaging on that has maybe started to resonate with people. And I think that might be, you can smash the window of a car and steal the pocketbook, but if the keys aren't in it, you can't steal the car. That I think has been somewhat effective in combating the car thefts. And you're right, they are down, somewhat significantly for, year over year this year.
Right.
But the larcenies
Are up.
are up primarily because of the catalytic converter thefts.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Nichols?
Just a very simple question. Most of these incidents have been in public places, and we tend to think that's probably more safe because there's more eyes on spaces. When you live in a neighborhood, we've had conversations in the neighborhood I live in, is it at all a deterrent for people in a neighborhood to leave lights on? If you have to leave your car in your driveway, would this be a good message for any of our residents or not? If you have to leave a car parked in your driveway because you don't have a garage or there's no garage space, is it a deterrent to leave lights on, or is that not significant? They are brazen enough to not be bothered by that?
I think it's yes to both of those things. I think what's most likely to happen is that your neighbors can see the suspicious activity taking place in the neighborhood because your lights are on, or their lights are on. But I wish I could tell you that, that these young people who are understand they're, many of them are juveniles, but either they're driving around a town they don't live in the middle of the night, often in a stolen car. The fact that your lights are on is not really going to, to completely prevent them. Now, if somebody's car is in their driveway bathed under a spotlight and two houses down, there's one, in the shadows, maybe they'll opt for that. But I don't, a lot of the best video surveillance that we've seen of these is because the people are, they don't realize there's a camera there, but, they sure as heck know there's a light on them. And, you see, again, unfortunately, you see the gray hoodie and, the mask, which is going to be the enduring, disadvantage of COVID, is that everybody has an excuse now to wear a mask, and they're just popping those on. So you get really good, clear video of that, and it's not helpful.
Well, and I just will have to say it compliments to the police department, because I had 2 phone calls last night or the night before when my packet was delivered. Why was there a police car in my driveway from my neighbors? So they're watching, right?
Thank you, Chief. I appreciate the length of time you gave us on that.
Absolutely.
Okay. We're going to now go to F, which is the authorization to apply for a 2022 Small Town Economic Assistance Program grant, otherwise known as STEEP. Mr. Mylone.
Be it resolved that the town council approves resolution number 080922-6. Be it resolved that the town council authorizes application for and acceptance of the 2022 Small Town Economic Assistance Program STEEP grant up to $500,000 for the installation of an approximate 650 linear foot sidewalk in the West Main Street Business District. Be it further resolved that the town council agrees to fulfill a 20% match should said grant be awarded, and be it further resolved that the town council authorizes town manager Sean M. Kimball to execute any and all documents for said grant application and acceptance.
Thank you. We have a second for Mr. Jenks. Discussion.
Mr. Martelli's here. I'll let him go ahead and explain
Sure.
this if that's all right.
Thank you.
Sean, do you want to bring up the area? Is it up there?
Right there.
Old
It's
now.
there.
So much is going on there.
So the idea here is to. Sure. Transcribe it. There you go. So the idea here is to bring the sidewalk from the corner of Willow and West Main Street and continue south down Willow Street to the new parking area, which was approved during the capital budget at the rear of the ball and socket property. This is 493 West Main Street here on the side. This whole extent here, the engineer and Public Works, as well as our new town engineer, we're thinking of continuing the streetscape brick sidewalks up to the edge of the building here and not leaving any green space there, leaving room for a snow shelf along Willow Street, and then putting in bollards around the corner, because ultimately you're going to have people coming out of the ball and socket property and then other pedestrians along this corner here, which there's no question that it's a busy area. So putting the bollards into the sidewalk there for safety, and then adding street furniture to mimic what's along West Main Street now, and then continuing the lighting, doing 3 lampposts up along the side, 2 along Willow Street, and then potentially relocating one of the overhead streetlights further south down towards the new parking area. The engineer who's been working on the design has put together, let me just fix this quick, some preliminary cost estimates. So it's about, I've seen between 280 and 350. We'll have those. I wanted to have them tonight, but we don't have them finalized as of yet. The grant is, there's $30 million available statewide within the program, and up to a $500,000 ask per project. And it does give you a better chance of getting the grant if the municipality does provide a 20% match. We need to go in to the grant. I can't check that box unless you folks agree to support it in that fashion today. Just a little, it was interesting. I went back through some of Jerry's files. And so the town applied for and received steep grants for West Main Street to do the sidewalks, starting basically from Ives Row all the way up to Maple Avenue over the years. So that was in 2006, 2008, 2011, and again in 2015. So there's a pretty good pattern here that the state supports this. And I think that the way that we're putting together the grant application, it's talking about all the different work that's going on in that area. And we're calling it another phase of the West Main Street streetscape, which they do like to see in these types of applications. So happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Any questions for Mr. Martelli? Mr. Belliver?
Yeah, so Andrew, so is this going to be a similar style sidewalk to what you were seeing here at the corner?
So yeah, well, we will continue. It's about a 14-foot wide area along the side of Building 2 for where Sweet Clouds is going. So the brick would mimic the brick that's on West Main Street, except for there's a better quality brick that they now use that's more color fast, so it won't fade like the ones that are there currently. They actually use it here out in the front of Town Hall and in the atrium out here, the courtyard rather. So it would that style would continue up to that first driveway, and then from there we just go to a regular concrete sidewalk extending all the way up to the back.
And it's basically going to go from street to building.
Street to building with bollards set off with a certain amount of footage left for snow shelf along the roadway. And there's in the budget is granite, not the whole length, but granite at least on that corner where the pavers are going to go, just to mimic what's on West Main Street. And also you do get truck traffic that makes that curve to go down towards Dalton to kind of protect the street.
Any other questions? I think we're ready to pull the trigger. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion
you.
carries unanimously. Okay, go get it, Mr. Martelli.
Next.
Sure.
All right. So this, so just a little background on this. So as you know, Town Beautification Committee, which I'm staff liaison for, looks to do projects around the town. So one of the ones that they've had envisioned over the years is to add another Welcome to Cheshire sign similar to the one that's out at 691 somewhere on West Main Street or Route 70. Currently, there is a hanging sign right at the 84 off ramp that unfortunately does say on the back of it, leaving the bedding plant capital of Connecticut, and it is, within the community. So I'll get to that. But working with the committee, we identified a location at 1681 Waterbury Road, which is Maple Oak Farm and Market. I actually approached the property owners there. So the gentleman there, Matt, runs the farm market over years. He constructed the building. He's been adding a lot of local products there. He has greenhouses up and back. It's about a 6-acre piece of property where he's actually moving his family to, and he's doing a whole bunch of work to the property. he's enthusiastically supporting and really wants this on his property. Fact be told, I went to him and asked him. And one of the reasons for that is these things are hard to maintain, from plantings and landscaping and whatnot. And he's willing to take it on. You know, it benefits him because he gets a little notoriety, you know, for hosting the sign, but also he wants to change the plantings 3 times a year. He wants to landscape it. He wants to light it. He's redesigned the whole frontage of his property and actually moving his own sign. So we're going to work together in order to place the sign in the best way to get the most motorist view as people come down West Main Street, Route 70 rather. It is the property of the town. So if we ever want to go and we want to remove it, it's our sign. If he fails to maintain the property or the property sells, we could obviously have that discussion. I worked with Attorney D'Onofrio to come up with an agreement to place the sign on the property. Want to have it produced by ABC Printing, which has done work for the town before. They're located here in Cheshire, so I think it's a nice little thing there. And the committee's really into it, and they've spent some time designing it and choosing colors. And that's our town flower is a red geranium, which is what the flower is on the top of the sign. So for him sponsoring the sign, we thought it was appropriate to put a rider on the bottom, which says sponsored by with his business name. The sign over here at 691 Dietrich's does all the planting there. Now they have a sign there that says that they sponsor that location as well as other adopted spots around town. So it's in line with this. Will just be a little bit more permanent, but that rider sign is separate from the Welcome to Cheshire sign. So that could always come off or be switched on and off depending on if other people sponsor the sign.
Okay,
So-
any other questions before we introduce the motion? Okay, we sort of put the horse before the cart here, but you're forgiven.
Sorry.
But you might want to wait around for the vote.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, with all of that, Ms. Nichols?
Thank you. You did all the hard work, so all I have to do is read it. It's wonderful. Be it resolved that the town council approves resolution 080922-7. Be it resolved that the town council approves the license agreement with Francis and Tracy,
Swidajewski.
say it again?
Swidajewski.
Swidajewski of 1681 Waterbury Road as presented, and be it further resolved that the town council authorizes town manager Sean M. Kimball to execute this agreement for said license agreement pursuant to the terms and conditions as presented and discussed.
We have a motion, we have a second. Thank you, Ms. Pavano. Do you also have a question? Okay, that was just a second. Any questions for Mr. Martelli?
Seems like a win-win.
Looks like another
Great.
pull the trigger here.
All right.
All
Thank
those
you.
in favor? Opposed? Here we go.
All right. Appreciate it.
Thank you much.
Thank you.
Okay, this now brings us to the town manager report and other communications. So with that, Mr. Town Manager.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll start tonight's report as I have for the last couple of years with a brief COVID update. Really just draw your attention to the chart there that I have been reporting on our local positivity rate. And as you can see, it's been very volatile, but certainly elevated over the last couple of months. No surprise. We know at this point in the pandemic, it's entered sort of something of a kind of constant state as opposed to kind of the spikes we saw earlier. And as you see there, that last big spike of the Omicron variant. But at present time, our local positivity rate is 4%. That was as of today's report. That's 65 positives in Cheshire out of 1,644 tests over the last week. Again, you'll see some additional information and mapping there. But that's really it for the COVID update this month, other than just a reminder to Cheshire residents that COVID test kits, free COVID test kits remain available at the Cheshire Library or Human Services Department here at Town Hall during any of our regular business operating hours. Couple quick updates from the library. The summer reading program has been very successful. They had a 42% increase in their participation from children, teens, and adults, which was a total of 960 patrons participating. So very proud of that. Also, I think we had a plug for this before, but the Cheshire Public Library's AV studio has launched and is very successful. Kudos to technology coordinator Jared Goldman, who's done a great job providing classes and helping folks with their various tech needs at the library. Fraud tip line is the next item, and this is a recommended best practice that our auditors had brought to our attention and all of their municipal clients I'm pleased to report that just last week, the town and Cheshire Public Schools have partnered to establish a fraud hotline utilizing a firm called Fraud HL. This simple system provides a confidential communication tool for town and CPS employees to report any incidents or concerns to upper management, including but not limited to theft, misappropriation of funds, misconduct, ethics violations, safety issues, discrimination, workplace violence, etc. This new system is being rolled out early next week and via department communications, also emails and workplace break room posters. A few recreation updates. The Parks and Recreation Fall 2022 program brochure is now available and can be viewed on the rec department's webpage. And also the last of our 4 Bartlett Beats concerts. The first 3 have been very successful. The 4th is this Friday, August 12th at 7 p.m. with a performance by the Dead Man's Waltz, which interweaves the music of the Grateful Dead, the Allman Brothers, and the band. Please note that actually at the council's request, this concert will be staged as we did last year at the Bartlett South property, kind of emulating where the future band shell will be. So a great opportunity for folks to come out and enjoy that part of the property and kind of little vision for the future there too. A quick update on the community pool. Walkthrough was held yesterday to finalize some planned security camera installations for the outside of the facility, as well as covering part of the pool deck. This planned project estimated to cost about $9,100 for all equipment and installation of 6 different camera systems. And finally, summer concert series at Mixville Park tomorrow, weather dependent, on Wednesday, August 10th at 6:30 at Mixville. There's been a great series this year of some concerts at Mixville Park. And as a reminder, limited transportation is available for senior center members on a first come, first served basis. Just another plug, because this will be the last one before last council meeting, a regular council meeting before the Fall Festival. The always highly anticipated annual Cheshire Fall Festival is scheduled for Friday, September 9th, and also the main day on Saturday, September 10th. So just encourage everybody to come out for what should be a wonderful fall festival. A few quick economic development updates. Jersey Mike's officially opens with ribbon cutting, I believe, tomorrow, August 10th. Sweet Claude's Ice Cream, as we all know, is very, very close to opening. They have a conditional certificate of occupancy walkthrough scheduled for this Thursday afternoon, and they're hoping for an opening very soon thereafter. The conveyance of the state property 691 has been completed. The deed was recorded on the land records yesterday. The Bovano property at 830 South Main Street was sold to developers from Rhode Island for $975,000. Also, the Cheshire Convalescent Center, or Cheshire Rehab at 745 Highland Avenue, over by the prison property, that sold on July 28th for $8.8 million to a New Jersey-based operator. And finally, the new trail parking area project that was supported by the town council at 55 Railroad Avenue is substantially complete, with final seeding by the contractor for the future grassy area being finalized midweek this week before officially opening. And there's some final fencing materials that are on delay, but the parking lot should be available to the public really any day now. So good news there. A few upcoming council meetings, and I'll conclude my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kimball. Any questions? Ms. Bavano?
Yes, Sean, I'd just like to ask you on the security for the pool, do you know when that will be completed? You're probably just getting cost estimates.
Yeah, I know they
now,
went
right?
through with Fusion yesterday, and really it doesn't take them too long, depending on any material delays.
Mhm.
But they're finalizing the locations, and they should have that up and running very soon.
Thank you.
Philibert?
Just a quick question. Obviously, we're looking forward to the last concert being in the proposed new location. Just curious, have you spoken with Stonegate or the people in that area just to let them know that the concert's moving closer? I mean, just to give them a heads up. I mean,
Yeah, I haven't personally. I know we had one last year. Again, it was rain delayed, so it ended up the next night. Or sorry, the rain delay was Tuesday night of last year's concert series. And I don't recall any issues with Stonegate there from that concert. So it's kind of our second time through, but certainly something. And I know John Golick has been very close in working with a number of folks there. So I'm sure that we can make sure they're made aware.
okay, thank you.
For sure.
They love the park and half of them can't hear. No, I'm kidding. I've got good friends there, so I can say it. They can't hear, though. Anyone else? I have a few. The chamber lobby, you were going to be doing Chambers Lobby. There was going to be some potential updates and whatever. We had talked about it some time ago. I didn't know where that, I know things can fall off track for obvious reasons, cost, budget, everything. So if you could just kind of get back to us on that with the status, we're certainly very happy with what's going on in here. No issues at all.
Coincidentally, I actually had a conversation with George Nowotny just earlier this afternoon to get an update as to where some of the signage, the seal that was going to be ordered for the main area out there was, and he's going to follow up. There were a few font decisions that we need to make, so I'd like to circulate actually some photos that the sign company forwarded.
Okay.
But I did want get an update from George, and I'll forward that on to you.
Okay. And you had also mentioned, I think during one of our capital stuff, there was, you were getting about thinking that the carpeting in here was shot, and that's part of some of this too. So you can just give a better report whenever you got it.
Absolutely.
And we'll get the word, just knowing, we're not trying to waste money, but things do get a little shabby, as we all know. Okay. And then, do you have a status on the chicanes? I know we had a conversation, I believe it was in agenda prep. You mentioned an obstacle that rode a bicycle and raised some concerns. So I didn't know if you had any follow-up to that, but the chicanes, we're all concerned about what goes on there.
Yep, absolutely. So, we did have a meeting out with a deep official at West Main Street Crossing to talk through what we're proposing there. At this point, we have the design, we have our design engineers that have worked out the design, and we're moving forward, ready to move forward with the purchase of the chicanes. We were looking kind of for an endorsement from DEEP, but it doesn't appear that that's necessary, frankly, one way or the other. But we've had Chief Drive out there, everyone to look at it and make sure it's absolutely, a beneficial safety upgrade for obviously a crossing that we're all, very concerned with. And we firmly believe, and I know the council has supported that that's a great safety improvement for the crossing area there. So I'll get an update from the engineering folks as to what the status is, but we're ready to move forward.
I think I also observed on South Brooksville, some work at the linear trail crossing. Is the town embarking on, I saw some crime tape up,
I think
No,
that's
it was,
largely by the pollinator pathway folks there. I
No,
think. Is
not
that what you're
there.
talking about?
This was South Brooksville. Yeah. Or is that North Brooksville? That's South Brooksville.
That's north.
I thought it was, I think where the.
No, Pollinator's the north. I'm
It's on
talking
North
about the
Brooksville.
south. I'm talking South Brooksville.
South Brooksville at the crossing. Yeah, I'm
There's-
not
there's a
aware.
crossing there, and I had seen just some tape that was put up.
I'd have to follow up. I'm not aware.
Okay.
I've seen the tape that was around the North Brooksville area
Yeah,
that they were
and I'm not
working.
referring to that.
Okay.
It was actually a nice article on that,
Yep,
the
right,
Cheshire Herald,
right.
and I think the Citizen had one too.
Yeah, I'll
And
follow up and must have been Public Works doing some work down there or
Yeah,
something.
I was just curious, it wasn't impeding anything. It was just, something I noticed.
Sure.
Okay, I didn't have anything else for you, Sean. I didn't have any further questions, so I guess that'll end your report. Okay, so with that, we've got the status reports. I know Jim referenced the fact that crime is falling, and then all of a sudden it's not. But, that's the way that goes. I know the firemen put out a pretty nasty barn fire. They called it a garage fire, but it was really truly a barn, quite distant from the home, and still too bad. But boy, that was a hot day to fight a fire. Very hot day to fire. Well, I guess every day's a hot day with a fire, but dangerous too. Okay. We now go to reports of the committees of the council. So I will start on my left. Ms. Pavano?
I have no report, but planning is going to be meeting on the 23rd.
Okay, great. Mr. Velaber? Okay. Ms. Nichols?
Personnel's meeting on the 16th, follow-up issues.
Terrific. Mr. Bowery? You have none? Okay, very good.
I have a report.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Walsh. You're always a presence, but it's hard to look up.
The Solid Waste Committee did meet last week. We will be meeting again in August. There are a number of issues that we are looking at, including alternatives to bulky trash and some other items on the agenda. So we will be busy over the next couple of months, and hopefully we can come up with something that we can present to the council.
And I believe, Don, you also mentioned that it's at that meeting or those meetings that you'll be discussing also the spending, the expenditure, and how of the NIPS money.
Yeah, the next meeting, we did, we are consulting with other towns to see what other towns, how they're using it. Just to clarify, it's not specifically to go out and send somebody out to pick up every nip bottle in the town, because $15,000 won't cover it. So we're trying to come up with a way where we understand the importance of cleaning up the town, but how to best utilize the funds we get so that we can clean it up and continue to clean it up on a regular basis. So those are things that we are looking at, and hopefully over the next couple of months we will have an idea, because a machine to clean them up, it will take several years before we can save up enough money from that fund to do it. And it's just, like I said, not enough money to pay somebody to clean up the town for the entire year. So
Yeah, this seems like it'll take some volunteer effort. And also, I would be concerned under your deliberations, just the public safety aspect of some of this cleanup, because I'm sure you're going to focus on main streets instead of them state highways, no doubt. And so safety, I think, has to be part of it.
And we ask people to make sure, if they're, unfortunately, if they're on their front lawn, pick them up, clean them up, but if you see a bunch of them on the main roads, I would say be careful about doing anything there. We don't want anybody to get hit by a car or anything trying to do that, but we will hopefully come up with a safe way and a way to clean up the town a little bit better from the number of bottles. And I would ask the public, please try not to litter. I mean, it's just common sense, but it's amazing how many are out there, and it's just, this is our town. Let's try to keep it a little cleaner.
Okay, thank you, Don, for your report. Okay, so I have a referral to the Budget Committee for the new federal procurement guidelines policy to the Budget Committee. So your group will be working on that. I know I was going to ask Attorney D'Onofrio maybe to spend a little time on it, but I think he's best spending time on it with them. When time is appropriate, unless, Jeff, you're so prepared. I'm willing to do whatever you want, but what do you want to do?
Dave's not, no.
Huh?
Dave's like, I read it. It will be here till midnight. I'll give you the 60-second version. There you go.
That's fine.
The 60-second version is that the Code of Federal Regulations has uniform federal procurement guidelines that are applicable to non-federal entities such as municipalities when they receive federal funds. This came up for the first time on my watch last summer when the Board of Education's COO contacted me and said that in their audit, their auditor had flagged that they didn't have compliance with uniform federal guidance. That's what the genesis of the memo was. I said you could adopt a policy or the town could adopt an ordinance. See, most municipalities do comply with these requirements because they're consistent with state statute and charter provisions, but they don't have a written policy. And the specific federal regulation says that the non-federal entity has to have and use documented procurement procedures. So the easy way to do it is just adopt a policy saying, see, when the auditor comes in, we have a policy. But most of this stuff you're doing already anyway.
Gathered, but when the Fed, they break into people's houses, they do all kinds of stuff. They're always imposing things on us. So when they want to do stuff like this,
Well, especially with ARPA money.
Right. So we want to know we're doing it right, but we want to know what it is too. So that's what you're going to take up, and we'll take whatever you say. I'm sure we'll do it without much of a presentation. Because we're already doing it.
You're right.
I think.
I've got some questions after.
Absolutely. So thank you for that. Thank you for that, Ms. Bowery. So we're now going to miscellaneous. Someone's got to throw some miscellaneous at us one month. But we'll move again to liaison reports. Again, I'll start on my left.
No, sir.
Surely, Mr. Jenks.
Yeah.
The I would just say that, so beautification, at the last beautification meeting, there was a discussion as far as trees and the need, or the, the interest in planting more trees in town where possible. I don't know, I'm not going to speak for the committee and say that they're going to make a request, but there, perhaps will be a request for more funds for planting of trees on municipal property at some point. That's about it. We had a brief discussion. Andrew showed a picture of that corner of West Main Street. There's a tree there that's more or less dead that will be, the plan is, I think, to remove that and plant another kind of closer to the building, but better positioned and better for the right of way, or better for the sight line there, and just better in terms of the health of the tree. So other than that, that's all I have tonight.
It's good to hear your reports. Okay. Oh, gee, John, you're gonna have to shout out. I can't see a waving hand. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Don. Now that you got our undivided attention. We're gonna now go to appointments to boards and commissions, if there's any.
For me today.
Terrific. We have a town attorney report and communication opportunity for you, Mr.
I was going to share with you until the discouragement from Mr. Borrowy. The fact that when I was a very young lawyer, some 30 plus years ago, and I was doing work for a large federal government contractor, the partner that I was working with wrote a song about the FARs, the Federal Acquisition Regulations, shortly before he left the practice for a while. And I remember the words, but I'll save it for the budget committee.
They're all going to learn it, come back and do it.
It's good. It kind of rhymes with farce, too. So anyway, we move along to council communications. Any letters to the council that anyone's received they want to disclose? Mr. Jenks?
I'm sorry. Actually, I was jumping ahead to miscellaneous, I think, but.
Oh, that's fine. You got something for miscellaneous?
Well,
Fantastic.
I think the trouble with miscellaneous, no one knows what's in miscellaneous.
That's right. It's a
No,
catch-all.
I forgot to mention that Beautification Committee is actually down 3 members. At least that's what I learned at our last meeting. So if anyone is interested in beautification, please, it's a committee that does a lot of work, and actually it does some great work in town, and is really begging for some new members. So if anyone's interested, please come forward.
And I think a lot of people don't even know the role they play in signs that go up in town. I mean, they're more than just the trees and some of the plantings. They have kind of a significant role. So with that, we have a public appeal for volunteers for the Beautification Committee. So let's get going, volunteers. So now we have some items for executive session. I will ask that we go into executive session to discuss personnel matters and land acquisition, and that the discussion includes, we start with the one that needs the most people.
And we're also adding contract negotiations.
Contract,
Just so
correct.
that- yep.
That's the language that we needed under personnel contract. You got it. Okay, so I will ask for a motion, and who am I re-including?
No, yeah, we do. No, we don't need. Oh, no, oh, if you want to stay for the land acquisition. Yeah, that's it. Everybody.
Yeah, I
here
figured
can
we
stay.
would discuss that
That's fine.
first.
Yep, that's fine.
Including the town manager, town attorney, finance director, economic development director, assistant town manager, and the management specialist. I'll move that motion.
Thank you. We have a second?
Well done.
Thank you, Ms. Pavano. All those in favor? Okay, so we'll move into executive session. There will be no votes or action taken after executive session. So the meeting, we will follow with adjournment, and that concludes.